also interesting because we got a little bit of clarity from him and Anthony Donko about their view of how this new offensive line is coming together and guys that can play multiple positions, where they might play. So this is the other thing he said that I thought that was generally newsworthy about the spring football.
Right now, probably the right side will be my first spot I look at. I mean, so far, since I've been here, I've had snaps at center in a game, right guard, left guard. In the bowl game, I actually got reps at left tackle. But I say it all the time, I'm going to do whatever they need me to do. Whether that's me playing left tackle, whether that's me playing right guard or center. But right now, I think going into spring ball, to your point, I think my focus is probably most likely going to be on the right side.
Reaction?
He's not a center. Like, it's been 2 years. And it's not to say he can't be a center, and it's not to say he can't be a good center. And sure, if there's something that goes on, Dom Ruley gets banged up, or Brock Riker doesn't develop physically in time to play, like, it is absolutely a possibility. But I just hope we can all update in real time the conversation going on about a guy, where it's like, because Phil Trautwein said initially, like, he's a center of the future, and then now we are in the future and he's not a center. Well, things do change, and I know that part of that is Phil Trautwein is not here anymore, but right. Ryan Clanton, when he was describing what it takes to be a guard, and it's like you go to Buffalo Wild Wings and you drink Mountain Dew and you smoke a cigarette in the parking lot and you go and you run through somebody's face. I don't think Cooper smokes, but like, if you're talking about somebody who tenacity, aggressiveness, and just a different mindset, that describes Cooper Cousins. So in terms of mentality, if you need that to play guard, he is a guard. He could play center, and he's smart enough to play center. He's capable to do those things. He's been snapping for 3 years now, but it has been this kind of like, the first thing we learned about Cooper Cousins is he's going to play center, and everyone's very excited about that. And then, 2.5 years go by, and despite the fact that we've had this conversation, like, he's going to be starting at guard, and most likely he's going to be the right guard for this team this year, unless somebody else beats him out for it. And of course, that's going to be part of the spring, is finding out, what the talent levels and who's developed, who hasn't developed, etc. Again, you don't want to just say this guy is the starter if you're the coaching staff specifically, but it feels like, as you mentioned, this year I would put it in pencil. And, I never have an eraser on the end of my pencil because I use it up in the first 10 minutes of having the pencil. So I don't ever have an eraser. So I would write it in pencil, which is like writing in a pen for me.
Fair enough, T. Frank. Well, having this positional conversation across the offensive line, let's hear next from Anthony Donko about where he expects to line up to start spring practice along this new look Penn State offensive line.
Personally, I love playing tackle. Tackle's just fun because I can be able to just play the way I want to play. I feel like playing guard, I was very constricted a lot of times and not be able to play to my strengths per se, but at the end of the day, I was going to play whatever position that I needed to play, and I was going to play at a high level, whatever position I was going to play. But I feel like for me to be myself and play the way I want to play, tackle is the best position for me.
Really interesting stuff from both Anthony Donko and Cooper Cousins on their outlook position-wise in 2026. It's very cliche in football, obviously, Frank, for guys to say that they will do whatever they need to do and play whatever position they need to play to help the team.
Yeah.
Offensive line is the one where you could end up in 3 different spots to do that. And Anthony Donko has not yet played center, but he certainly has played both tackle and guard pretty consistently throughout the course of his career. So your just thoughts on his perspective on that and listening to him say it, which is sometimes different than, when you see his facial reactions and everything else, you can get a different feel for things at times than if you're just listening to it on audio or so on and so forth. So your reaction to all that.
Yeah, I talked to him at the beginning of last year, and I got the sense that he liked tackle more than guard, but he, was going to do what they were going to ask him to do, and he did. Here's the thing is, he was really good by the end of the year at guard, so it's not necessarily that he can't be a great guard, but I think just generally most linemen like playing tackle more than guard for a lot of different reasons, not to an insignificant degree about the future pay of a tackle versus a guard. And I think tackles probably, this is splitting hairs here, and it probably might not be great to say, but if you're a tackle, you might not get beat up as much. When you're a guard, you are like big horn sheep ramming heads with the defensive line all the time. as a tackle, he mentioned it to the last time I talked about him, where you have more time to work a move, you have more time to react to things because there's more distance between you and the defensive end. And so, like, your athleticism matters, which I think is a huge bonus for him. But also, like, yeah, you're not Cooper Cousins. You're not trying to run through somebody's face on every single play. Like, the whole point of guard is, hey, I'm going to beat the crap out of you for 60 minutes, and we'll see if you're ready to play in the fourth quarter. Where at tackle, it's Ryan Clanton even said it's more about pass protection, more about pass sets. It's more about understanding the defense. It's cerebral. And like Donko, that fits all of the things that he is. He's a very smart guy, voracious learner, which is why he was able to play early. And so all of those things do fit him. But at the same time, he also could turn it on and was absolutely bulldozing people at the end of last year. But you can have that at tackle too. So you would love to have two guys that can do that at right guard and right tackle. But I don't know which tackle position Donko is going to play. I think that's still open for interpretation. He has not played left tackle, but that is, to me, at least on the table still, even though I would assume and lean towards he's going to stay at right tackle, and there's going to be a competition for that left spot, which feels a little uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how Ryan Clanton and his can't think of his name. Is it Jackson Scott Brown, the assistant offensive line coach? I think that's his name. Yeah.
That's him. Yep.
How they go about putting this group together, because there's some position coaches here at Penn State now that are going to have an easier time than others when it comes to having to blend returners and former, newcomers together. And this is just an interesting place to do it. You have Donko, who's a multi-year starter of some sort, obviously. You have Cousins, who is highly regarded in the program on and off the field. But you also brought some very talented Iowa State guys with you as well, of course, and signed Brock Riker from Texas State, signed some others too. So, I mean, I don't want to call it a blank slate because I'm sure it isn't for all these guys here. But, this position group more than any other, you're going to have to earn your playing time moving forward. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so there is kind of a rough outline to me of the guys that are starters. Trevor Burr is a starter. You have a competition at center with two names that make a lot of sense. Sexton, really the position is left tackle. That is, or at least the second tackle is open. A lot of the guys coming from Iowa State are younger, and it would be a surprise for me that they would compete this year, given Penn State play. I guess that's more my bias of knowing these players, because you've got guys on the roster that are ultra talented, like that I've been following since high school and are super, super talented. But guys like Will Tompkins, who's an interior guy, and then Qual, who I think is future starting left tackle. But are they better than the guys who have been here and are also as athletic and maybe a little bit bigger and more filled out in their frame so far? And that's really, to me, the biggest thing that I learned this past week was Garrett Sexton is back on track as a top 75 offensive lineman from the class of 2024. I think he looks awesome. He looks like a tackle now, and like a Penn State tackle, where it's not extra body weight, all those things. Like, he's worked through those issues. And I think in the conversation about the offensive line, he got a little bit lost in the shuffle here.
I'd agree. Yeah, I'd agree.
Fitz and I have gone back and forth about Egan Boyer and Garrett Sexton, as far as, like, I'm very much a fan of Garrett Sexton and his potential, and he was very high on Egan Boyer. Boyer had a more consistent path forward. And the thing I said last time when we were talking about this is, like, just because Egan Boyer was the more athletic of the two doesn't mean Garrett Sexton wasn't athletic. He's hyper athletic offensive lineman with a huge frame, maybe more size potential than Egan Boyer, who was, it looked like he was going to have to work harder to get that weight on. Sexton put on a lot of weight pretty quickly, so like that was both a positive and a negative, where it wasn't good weight, but he's a more natural carrier of all of that weight. So I think it's entirely reasonable he could play left tackle if they think that's his best position. He's been on the right side behind Donko. So how they decide those things, but to me, he's the front runner right now because of his age, his experience, and his talent level. And that's the thing that I think we keep forgetting, is this guy is really talented. He's very smart, and he's clearly a guy that wants to do it. He wants to work for it. And you know, Donko talked about how his technique has gotten better, and really the last thing that was holding him back was just size and the right kind of size. And I don't know, like, is he 320 or anything like that yet? It doesn't look like it, but the difference is the last year and a half or so, he had kind of a doughy face, right? And so it was like, what kind of weight were you putting on? He's the same size, but he had thinned out in a lot of areas, and he was talking about the body weight the body fat percentage he had dropped. So like, I think he's ready to go, and he's had enough time of not being injured and progressing as an offensive lineman. There's something that can unlock there. So I'm excited to see like what the potential is here, because I think he's sneakily a guy that is a future NFL starter from a talent perspective. This is a guy that's just as talented as some of the other guys. He has a bit of a Nolan Rucci ceiling to me, but also has done a better job of progressing earlier in his career. And I'm not trying to knock Nolan Rucci. He went through a lot going to Wisconsin and coming here and all those things. But like that, to me, I think of like athleticism, size, physical ability to bend and manipulate space and to move your hips and things like that. I don't see any holes in his game. So the last thing is to see him actually prove it. And I'm very high on Garrett Sexton. So I think he can be a very talented player. And I would put him as the front runner for that final spot on the roster at that other tackle spot.
Well, that second tackle or left tackle, whatever you want to call it, is definitely going to be one of the more interesting battles to watch during spring practice.